The Taiping Rebellion in China was the deadliest civil war in human history. 20 to 30 million people would perish in it between 1851 and 1864. This number is roughly equivalent to the United States' population on the eve of its own civil war in 1861. This would mean that everyone in America would have died if the same deadly war with the same deadly consequences had occurred on its soil. Only the Second World War, occurring around a century later, would outdo the Taiping Rebellion's death toll. Astoundingly, the Taiping Rebellion was fought largely with edged weapons such as spears and swords. A sharp contrast to the American Civil War, which was fought with everything modern technology had to offer at the time. Despite widespread usage of modern weaponry, the American Civil War produced a death toll 30 times less than that of the Taiping Rebellion's death toll. A Chinese Civil War that later became an international conflict as the British, French, and Americans intervened militarily to protect their economic interests. A total war that drew no distinction between civilians or soldiers, men or women, as the countless large-scale massacres of civilians and the female soldiers of the Taiping armies attest to. Though the Taiping Rebellion's shocking death toll may be its most distinguishing feature, it also put China at a crucial cultural, political, and religious crossroads. A fork in the road that would forever alter the course of Chinese history, the consequences of which still can be felt today. Qing Dynasty, China, 1789. Born into impoverished circumstances, Liang Fa's schooling ended after only 4 years, forcing him to join the workforce. Eventually, he found steady and skilled work as a carver of printing blocks. Sometime in the 1810s, his newfound trade eventually landed him in Canton, China, where he tirelessly sought to promote and use his skills. At the time, the British East India Company had firm control over trade with China. Despite the economic powers of the East India Company, Qing Dynasty laws greatly restricted the mobility of all Europeans, for they were not allowed to venture outside a small section of land outside the walls of Canton. In 1815, Liang Fa, while promoting his printing block carving skills, met one of these foreigners, a Scottish Protestant missionary named William Milne. Milne hired Liang Fa, and the printing block carver went to work block printing Christian pamphlets in the Chinese language, even though, at the time, he was a devout Buddhist. Within a year of employment under Milne, Liang Fa, by 1816, had become a devout Christian, no doubt a result of Milne's tireless efforts to convert his Chinese employees. Liang Fa immediately set about writing and printing his own Christian literature. One of these pamphlets was called An Annotated Reader for Saving the World, which was distributed in the area of Canton in 1819. After the death of his teacher, Milne, in 1822, Liang Fa began working for the London Missionary Society, eventually becoming a preacher in 1827. By 1832, Liang Fa had completed his most ambitious work, Good Words for Exhorting the Age, a book which encompassed everything he had learned about Christianity in an accessible form for the Chinese reader. Having completed his most important work, Liang Fa began to relentlessly distribute the book throughout Canton and the surrounding areas. At times, he would even travel as much as 250 miles into the countryside, distributing thousands of copies of his work. Soon, Liang Fa would develop a new strategy for distribution whereby he would give his book to test takers of the local Confucian examinations. Though these men were undoubtedly firmly traditional in their outlook and beliefs, being budding experts in Confucianism, their education and literacy made them ideal potential converts. One of these men, soon to receive Liang Fa's book outside a Confucian examination hall, was named Hong Kuo-xiu, better known as Hong Xiuquan. Hong Kuo-xiu was born on January 1st, 1814 in Fujian Springs, Hua County, Guangdong Province. Soon after his birth, his family moved to a small, modest house in Guanlubu Village, Hua County, situated 30 miles north of Canton. Hong's family were farmers amidst a region dominated by hilly, rough terrain. Ethnically, the Hong family were Hakkas, which roughly translates to guest people, as their presence was relatively new in the region compared to the Cantonese. Despite the outsider label, the Hakkas were little different from the Cantonese, their greatest difference being that their women did not bind their feet due to their labor being needed in the fields. Hakkas often had to farm the worst farmlands as most of the good tracts of land were already taken by the time their ancestors settled in the Cantonese-dominated region. Once a rich and prominent family, the Hongs now struggle to make a living as farmers on second-rate agricultural lands. The Hongs always held hope that one day their name could be restored to its former glory. Their ownership and operation of a local school fostered these dreams. It was in this schoolhouse that a young Hong Kuo-xiu began to fervently study the Confucian classic texts at the age of 7. Hong Kuo-xiu's youthful scholarship showed immediately, and he was soon able to recite by memory the 4 books, the 5 classics, and the other compulsory texts for the civil service examinations. By Hong's early teens, he had become well versed in both Chinese literature and history. More so than their schoolhouse, the Hongs now believed that Hong Kuo-xiu was their primary hope for greatness and prestige. Many teachers worked for free to hone Hong Kuo-xiu's skills, hoping to be rewarded at some point if the child were to pass the civil service examinations. By age 13, Hong Kuo-xiu took the local examinations and placed in first place. By the age of 16, Hong Kuo-xiu became a teacher himself, receiving a modest income paid in rice, lard, lamp oil, and salt. Eventually, Hong Kuo-xiu outgrew the educational limitations of his village, and as a result, his family pulled together all of their resources to finance his journey to a more specialized school away from the village. After the specialized instruction, Hong Kuo-xiu journeyed toward Canton in 1827 to take the civil service examinations. After the first day of testing sitting in a stuffy, cramped cubicle, Hong Kuo-xiu placed high in the initial rankings, but by the third day, he lost his position and failed the test. Depressed, Hong Kuo-xiu returned to his family farm to help out with their agricultural work. In 1836, a 22-year-old Hong Kuo-xiu went to Canton again to take the regional Confucian examinations, having already passed at the local level. Outside the examination hall, among the crowds of other examinees, 2 men caught his attention. One was a Cantonese interpreter for a strange, foreign-looking man dressed in Qing Dynasty-era clothing. Through the mouth of his interpreter, the foreign man told everyone around him that there would be the fulfillment of their wishes, whether they chose to speak with him or not. To Hong Kuo-xiu, the man told him, "You will attain the highest rank, but do not be grieved, for grief will make you sick." Little did Hong Kuo-xiu know at the time, these remarks would prove to be prophetic. The next day, Hong Kuo-xiu seized the 2 men again, and this time is wordlessly handed Liang Fa's book, Good Words for Exhorting the Age. Sources indirectly point towards the identity of the foreign man being Reverend Edwin Stevens, an American missionary from New England. But the identity of his interpreter remains a mystery to this day. Hong Huo Xiu only skims the book briefly before quickly forgetting about it. Soon afterwards, Hong fails the examinations. After the New Year's festivities of 1837 are over, Hong Huo Xiu again takes the qualifying examinations in Hua County. He passes once again. And once again, he travels to Canton for the second stage. In the second lunar month of 1837, Hong finds out that he has yet again failed to pass the Canton examinations for a third time. Beginning to feel very ill, Hong hires a sedan chair with 2 bearers to carry him back to Guanlubu, Hua County. Seated upon the sedan chair, Hong falls asleep. Upon returning home, he falls into a sickened slumber while having wildly vivid dreams. All during this time, his concerned family crowds around his bed, having been called over by Hong. "Oh, my parents, how badly have I returned the favor of your love to me. I shall never attain a name that may reflect its luster upon you. Hong Huo Xiu." Hong's family fears the worst, thinking that he is dying. After these last words, Hong Huo Xiu loses all strength and falls asleep again and has yet another dream. A dragon, a tiger, and a rooster enter the room along with many musicians playing music. An ornate sedan chair, held by some of the musicians, enters the room. They request that Hong board their sedan chair. Hong mounts the chair and begins rising off the ground towards the skies above. Exuberant men and women greet Hong as he reaches the heavens. An elderly woman escorts Hong to a river, telling him, "Thou dirty man, why hast thou kept company with yonder people and defiled thyself? I must now wash thee clean." She proceeds to wash the sin from Hong's body. Groups of old men appear. Hong recognizes some of them to be the sages of ancient China. They then proceed to escort him to a large building. Upon reaching the structure, they cut him open and remove his insides and have them replaced with new reddish-colored insides. Then, unknown forces seal the incision in an instant, leaving no scarring. Examining the walls within the building, Hong notices that a number of tablets with writings about morality and honor are hung all over the walls. The men then escort Hong towards a magnificent hall, so beautiful words alone cannot begin to describe it. Imposingly higher than anything else in the chamber, a man sat dressed in a black robe and had an enormous golden beard. The bearded man wept while saying to Hong, "All the human beings in the whole world are produced and sustained by me. They eat my food and wear my clothing, but not a single one among them has a heart to remember and venerate me. What is, however, still worse than that? They take of my gifts, and therewith worship demons. They purposely rebel against me and arouse my anger. Do thou not imitate them." The bearded man then gave Hong a sword for killing demon devils, along with a seal and a yellowish fruit, which he consumed. The bearded man led him to look down at the humans on earth, explaining that everywhere he could see there occurred defilement and perversion. Afterwards, Hong is made to read scrolls filled with knowledge. Hong asks the bearded man, now referred to as father, what could be done about the situation. At first, father is dejected and tells his son that nothing can be done about it. Hong insists that he can help him by driving the demon devils out of heaven. Finally, father agrees, and Hong and his elder brother proceed to exterminate the demon devils in heaven. Though Father allows them to slaughter all of the demon devils in heaven, he orders that the demon devil king, Yan Luo Wang, flee as his very presence, dead or alive, would defile heaven. Tired after his conquest, Hong Huo Xiu rests in a palace with his wife, the first chief moon, whom he has a son with. Father guides Hong through a series of texts and tells him to return back to Earth and rid it of the demon devils so that the people there may be transformed. But before Hong leaves, Father orders Hong to add the name Quan, or completeness, to his name. From now on, Hong Huo Xiu was no more, and everyone would refer to him now as Hong Shu Quan. Father also bestowed the title Heavenly King, Lord of the Kingly Way, Quan, upon Hong as well. As Hong Shu Quan descends back to Earth, Father, while handing Hong 2 poems, assures him that he will be his protector throughout his coming struggle.